Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions, and we're back with another snippet, and once again we have beer in glass ready to go, don't we, mate?
We do, and beers from Amity Brew Co. We've both got the Red Lane Extra Special Bitter. But before we get too much into that, we're not alone, Steve.
No, once again we are joined by a very special guest drinker this week. Welcome to Hopinions, Jules Grey from the Hop Hideout. Jules, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, Steve and Martin. It's really nice to be invited on here. So, yeah, it's just finished a day's work. I'm on the wind down, having a beer afterwards with you two. So, yeah, it's a nice way to kind of round off a Sunday, go back home for a Sunday dinner.
What have you got in the glass, Jules?
Well, I've sort of, because it's just come out recently, and I'm probably going to talk about it maybe later on in the show. I've got Indie Graft. So this is the collaboration that Donzoco Brewing Company and myself and lots of other beer shops kind of putting together on, to try and sort of celebrate. Obviously, the last few months have been a real tough time, still are. Lots of different things going on in the beer shop sector. We've obviously been allowed to trade somewhat throughout the whole period. There's been some real challenges. Some beer shops haven't traded for personal reasons. Others have had to sort of pivot and do lots of different multi-channel selling. I've been actually going out, driving personally around Sheffield and dropping off home deliveries for people. It's a Nelson Sauvin hop version of Graft. So I don't know if either of you had Graft from Donzoco?
I haven't, but the beer you're having, I had a couple of days ago. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts in a few minutes about it, because I thought it was good, but we'll talk about it a bit more in a minute.
Ooh, that's positive.
Well, let's hope the beer tastes as good as the cause that is behind it. So without further ado, let's get into the first beer tonight. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yep. That's a tasty drop. What's in our glass there, Martin, isn't it?
Well, the initial is definitely like toffee and caramel, first of all.
Oh, it's fruity as well, isn't it? It's like properly fruity.
There's definitely some fruit in the background there. It's definitely got a cask feel to it, both mouthfeel and aroma. Very smooth. Looking forward to getting into it a bit more.
Yeah, so it's 4.5% extra special bitter. Doesn't really give any more detail on the can than that.
No, it gives nothing away, does it?
No, tasting notes, marmalade, caramel, and earthy. That's about all they give us. And we probably should say at this point, we are very grateful to Amity for sending across 3 beers to us to try. Yep. So we're both doing the ESB to start off with, and then I think you're going to move on to the American Pale a little bit later, and I'm going to do the Hells. So we'll look forward to trying those. Jules, how is the Indie Graft tasting?
It's delightful. This is the 3rd time that I've had it. So I initially, when I first came in, I snaffled a can away for myself. And I went round to my mum's house, and I shared a can with my mum, because she loves Donzoco's lagers, and she typically likes Belgian beer as well. So I thought it'd be really nice to, because obviously through lockdown, I've not, like a lot of people, not been able to see or visit your family. Doing doorstep drops for her so she can get medication and food. That was it for, a month. So it just felt really nice to be able to go around there and share this beer with her. It's got a real smooth body. He's added spelt and locally grown spelt and buckwheat, and it's got this really smooth, kind of a bit like New England IPA, that pillowy, soft body, which is, and it's got this full mouth feel, which I think some of the yeast that he's used, I know he's used potentially, I think, a Saison yeast and also like a wine yeast, Beaujolais wine yeast. So it's this kind of this vinous wine sort of beer thing going on, which is really, it's got really complex, really interesting. It's kind of describe, I mean, it's been hopped with Nelson Sauvin, so it's got kind of loads of those. I mean, I love New Zealand hops anyway, but again, they can be quite sort of winey in their characteristic gooseberry kind of notes like that. It's delicious, love it. So yeah, third time I've tried it. First time was with my mom, and I told her the whole story about beer coming together, and she said to me, she said, I like it. I don't like it as much as I like Big Foam. So I was like a little bit gutted by that. You know, my mom speaks her opinions, and that's why I get on with her and I love her so much, because she's always honest with me.
Fantastic. It sounds like we should have had your mum on as well this week. To be fair, if she's got such strong opinions, she should have been on as well.
Maybe we could line it up for the future, Jules, when you come back again. I like I said, I had this only a few days ago, and I found it just a little bit weird, a bit odd, but a very satisfying blend of different styles. They seem to, like the descriptions you gave are very, very accurate there, Jules, and they managed to put them all together. And I'm not sure it all should have worked, because like you say, there's a lot of winey characteristics. But yeah, I've got it down as a bit fruity, a bit funky, dry finish, and very satisfying. Really, really enjoyable. Is it a 500 milliliter can, I think?
Yeah, I think it is. It's definitely...
it's quite sizable, isn't it?
Yeah, 500 ml. Yeah, you're definitely getting your money's worth. Yeah,
I'd agree. I can see where your mum's coming from as well. She's got used to the Donzoko lagers. This is, and even if you like the Belgian-y styles, then this is going to be a bit of a leap at times if you've got an expectation of a lager. But yeah, I would agree. I think pushing the boundaries, if you're doing it in the right way with the right intentions, is a good thing. And for me, it did it. So I'd say a big thumbs up to Donzoko once again.
And is that proving quite popular as a beer, Jules, as well? Is with your punters? Is that one that they're kind of going for?
It sold really well, actually. Yeah, I think it was kind of good timing because, I'll be honest, kind of post, sort of 4th of July when there was the big sort of hospitality reopening. Obviously, it wasn't everywhere because people have taken their time, understandably. I'll be honest, like from the 4th of July, things have dropped off a little bit, which I completely get. People are maybe now getting a haircut, buying some clothes, sort of doing other things in their lives and not just sort of spending their money on food and drink. I sold quite a lot online. I did a little tasting pack. Yeah, it was a real positive, like little boost just at the right time again. And we got a bit of national coverage, so like drinks retailing, some beer shop like Vessel in Plymouth, they were on the local radio. So it was quite nice for sort of beer shops around the country from Scotland to all the way down to Plymouth and further to sort of get a bit of recognition as well, because I mean, since lockdown, you can buy good beer everywhere, direct, takeout. So it really is like a consumer's paradise, really, isn't it? So, the little business, you've kind of got to try and reminding people that you're still there to shop with you.
Well, you've kind of touched on it there, and I want to just jump into this while we're there. Obviously, the last few months must have been a fairly tough time for you as an independent retailer. So when the lockdown was announced, did you close initially and until you could find a new way of doing business, or did you try and find a way to stay open? How was the experience for you as a shop owner?
Oh God, it's so difficult to put this into words because I think like a lot of people, that it was just such a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I physically cried hours. I've sort of been elated that I've been able to be open again. And then there was so many, every day there was like a different announcement. So when the lockdown actually happened on, I think either the Friday 21st, 22nd of March, and like everyone shut, and then every day there seemed to be like a different announcement. And I think like everybody else, it was like hours watching the news, reading things on the internet. But we actually closed for 2 weeks because we're slightly different in the fact that we haven't got a bricks and mortar shop anymore. when we started, we were kind of in an antique centre, renting a space. Then we moved into our own bricks and mortar, like retail slash drink-in space. And then in March 2019, we moved into this city centre food hall. So obviously when restaurants and pubs shut, the food hall had to shut. It was kind of so panicky, like run up to that, we were like cleaning all the blinds down and locking everything away in the cold store. Because you're thinking about things like safety, security. If nobody's there, a place is going to get broken into. Sort of all these the things that go on in your head when you sort of run a business. And then when we shut for 2 weeks, it was just literally every day, like seeing what was going on. And then government. I do have to shout out SEBA. So James at Society of Independent Brewers, he actually was sending me quite a few personal messages, like with updates. He was the first person to send me the update on the government announcing that off licenses and beer shops and obviously trade elements at breweries could open. So obviously when that came through, I then had to have conversations with the food hall in terms of what I would be able to get access to and how to operate. Also personally, my health and my customers' health and well-being is the number one priority. Ultimately, I can't be putting them at risk, and I can't be putting myself and my partner and my family at risk. So we sort of decided to do reduced hours. We decided to try and do Sheffield home deliveries and mail order. So obviously with it being deliveries, you can do that out in the open. You're reducing risks. You can sanitize every step of the way. You're controlling the situation. And then obviously you can deliver at a distance as well. So we were sort of, ours was very much a compromised position. So we got access to the food hall a couple of days a week. We're doing home deliveries and just trying to keep going, really. So we were doing all right. I mean, overall, over the period, we've traded down. Some people, some maybe independent beer shops that own their own business might have been able to get access, 7 days a week. They may have been able to react, I guess, to that potential upsurge in sales. I wasn't in that position. I could only get access 2 days a week. Overall, I've traded down the period, but I'm just grateful we've traded anything. Because some friends and colleagues in Sheffield, who've run pubs have been completely shut and have been unable to do the takeaway option. So I'm just grateful that we were able to do something. And just everything's been quite a big. I can't even put it in words. Like reading a 40-page document, try and understand in like 2 or 3 days' time how you're going to reopen on a day. It's just unbelievable, really, the lack of time that the government's given certain sectors to be able to adapt to change. There's always going to be changes. There'll possibly be further lockdowns that we have to think about as an industry, and how do we cope with that? So I think there's a lot of people thinking ahead now about ensuring that they'll be able to get through those of times that will be coming up.
The 40-odd page document, me and Steve did look at that, but we obviously were looking at it from a distant perspective, as in we didn't have to implement any of those guidelines, rules and suggestions. And it was a hard read, to be honest. It was a hard read that you guys got only, like you say, only a few days beforehand. Which was ridiculous. And like you say, everything's even though you know where you are right now, with everything going on, there's such a state of flux for you guys all the time now. So I can fully appreciate your roller coaster of emotions, or emoji roller coaster, depending which way you want to talk about it. But, it must have been hard. Time must have gone very slowly and very quickly over the last 5 to 6 months, I imagine.
Yeah, well, this is the other thing. Not every story is the same. So I don't have a bricks and mortar shop, so I couldn't apply for the initial round of government help support. Luckily, with the furlough scheme, because I'd just taken on a part-time member of staff, and he started like 4 days before the date that the government came up with.
Oh.
So I managed to be able to apply for the furlough scheme. Obviously, I've not been furloughed. I've been paying my own wages, all the way through. I've been able to claim 80% furlough for my new part-time member of staff. So he's been furloughed longer than he's actually worked for me. And I've also been paying in his wage up so that he gets his full wage.
That's great to hear, though, that you as an employer have taken that commitment to actually top up that salary as well. So even a brand new member of staff, you've still committed to paying them a full wage over this time. And obviously you're taking a hit on that as well, aren't you, at the end of the day, because you're not, during that time, you haven't been making as much money. So you've had to take quite a big hit on continuing to pay that member of staff as well.
I mean, I'm kind of trying to think about it in terms of the longer picture, because I think sometimes if you get stuck in just the moment, it can be a really frustrating, a little bit depressing, if I'm honest, place to be. So you've kind of got to sometimes step out and like objectively look at the position you're in and go, right, hang on here a minute. So for example, for us, we started in 2013. So, I'll be coming up to being around for 7 years. I've had some amazing years. Hopefully together, as a world, I guess, we'll all get over this. If vaccines are coming, if we all do what we're meant to do and be sensible, in terms of the guidance that we're being given, we should be, fingers crossed, 12 months time, over this or over the worst of it, and able to, there's no doubt we're going to be going into some hardship and potential recession. But, we all need to kind of come together to work through that, and then hopefully we'll see a more positive, brighter future. And that's kind of what I have to say to myself every day. Only three times a day.
It's a good mantra, Jules. It's a good mantra.
It's not even like it sounds as though it's been a challenging time. It has been a challenging time for the independent sector, hasn't it? Not just in beer, but just in general, because we did see this widespread sort of essential lockdown of places, and for a while there, literally the only places we could get our goods were from supermarkets, because they were the only ones that were still allowed to trade, still allowed to open, obviously with certain restrictions. And yes, it's great to see that we're beginning ever so slowly to come out of the other side of that as things begin to gradually open. But obviously, as we're seeing more things open, what we're beginning to see is the potential impact of that as well. And certainly one of the things that we've seen today, as we record on day of recording, is the story that it wasn't even a story. The question that appeared on the BBC website, was it yesterday afternoon?
Yeah.
It was pubs or schools. One of them is going to have to close to allow the other to open. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's an absolute non-question. We essentially know the answer to that is that certainly we should be doing all we can to enable schools to open, because there's nothing more important than the education of our children. But I just found it really strange that was the headline that the BBC chose to lead with.
Well, go back to what you said earlier about clickbait. It's a fucking ridiculous question, isn't it? I mean, my son's second year university coming up. Regardless of whether he can do that online and remotely, he wants to go back to Plymouth. He wants to be back in that university environment. Your boys, as much as they may or may not moan about school sometimes, the whole benefit and talking about school as a holistic environment rather than just what they're learning, that whole ability to be mixing with people and be with other children and have those role models and teachers and stuff is vital for us as a country and us as a nation and for the kids. Personally, I don't understand why they suddenly popped up with pubs as the only thing you could close down versus schools. Seriously, in September, I'm being asked to transition to go back into the office, which means the 10 journeys a week on trains for an hour each time. However, if sitting in a pub beer garden or going to a bottle shop or beer shop is considered much more dangerous than me being on a train in and out of the largest city in the UK. You know, it's unbelievable that for me, that has come about because you've got all your health lobbyists in the background and they've seen an opportunity to say, well, we can just nudge pubs out of the way. Why? We don't need pubs. Schools are much more important. Who's going to say otherwise, for example? But seriously, has any other country had this question come up yet?
And I totally agree with you. It's just a non-question that they've just put those two together to cause friction in society again. Like, for me, I'll say the word nuanced again. It's not even just that. Like, once schools and pubs kind of open at typically different times, anyway, for a start, schools are very early, pubs trade is going to be in the evening. I'll be honest, like, people haven't flocked back to the pub. Pubs are probably trading at like 50% if they're lucky of people, depending on the type of pub. I think pubs with outdoor areas are doing probably slightly better than just indoor pubs. May have challenges in terms of the space and people's confidence in sort of smaller snug-like space. For me as well, it's why aren't we talking about staggering times? Why does one have to completely shut for something else? Like, life isn't like that. If officers and other people can stagger and rota, can't we do that more through society? For me, is what happens if you work in the pub trade and you've got kids, which there's thousands of people that are employed in hospitality in pubs. Yeah. I'm sure some of them have children. Does that mean, and the furlough scheme is being reduced? Are you saying to people that, they're going to be stopped from working, they're going to get less money on furlough potentially? We need better guidance from the government. It can't just be so black and white. It needs to be more measured. It needs to be like I say, staggering times. Pubs also donate £100 million a year to charities. And considering the current government has underfunded so many sectors of society, pubs contribute millions of pounds of value to great causes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything you said there, Jules, and it just echoes sort of what I said in my thinking. It's almost like they've put the question out there, they've leaked it to the press and the media so that it will distract people for a period of time while they maybe try and plan how this can work. It's not like they haven't had since March to think about how schools could reopen at some point properly.
I think maybe what we need to see is a little bit more of a measured approach to some of this, because for the many failings that there have been in the government's approach to the last few months, I actually think what we saw this week of them saying, you know what, actually, we've seen a spike in cases, so we're just going to slow things down now. And yes, there's a couple of sectors of the industry, of industries now that are going to be hit by that again, because they've now got to wait another 2 weeks to open. But it's the right thing to do, because we've opened up a lot of things again. And, obviously the last big opening being the hospitality sector, followed by the leisure sector. And yes, as a result of that, we've seen a spike in the numbers again.
No. Sorry, I'm going to disagree there. We haven't seen an increase in the infection rate because they've reopened it. We've seen an increase because people are fucking idiots.
Okay,
that is the only bloody reason.
No, I'm with you on that one.
Because if every individual does the right thing all the time, that infection rate does not carry on increasing.
And,
It's
and
bollocks.
I've witnessed that today firsthand. We went and spent a couple of hours just sat in a pub on the river locally to us this afternoon, and we saw a group come in, and we were sitting outside. They were sitting outside. They said, "Oh, there's a few of us now, but there's a few more coming. There's going to be 8 of us in total. Do you mind if we push 2 tables together?" And the employee in the pub said, "No, that's absolutely fine. You go ahead." And I'm literally sat there with my head in my hands, thinking, "It's not fine. You're not allowed to do that.
It's not fucking fine to ask, and it's not fucking fine to say yes. Seriously.
Yeah, it's just a lot." And so I think, yes, mate, people are idiots. It's as simple as that.
So the government had to open up these businesses, not because people like these businesses being open, but also the economy cannot carry on the way it is. But suddenly people just have gone from, we're relaxing the restrictions, to get bloody relaxed.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. And, you know, the local restrictions which have gone into place, even, you know, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, you know, which is a fairly self-contained part of Australia, is now going to have a curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning as of the time we're recording, because it carries on rising. And yet you feel like they would actually be able to contain that part of Australia quite well, given the distance between various cities and the landmass over there. And they're not able to do it. And we're not learning any of these lessons. And again, we've had some nice hot weather. People have been out and about. And because they're outside, it's okay to high five, hugs and stuff. No, seriously, as much as I wanted to hug my son the other week when I saw him, he's in another household. I'm in another household. I have other people coming into my house. Seriously, you can open up almost as much as you want if people do the right thing. I think we've aired that one quite nicely.
I think you've got your frustrations out, mate. I just want
I
to
do
make
actually.
sure.
I do feel better for that. The rest of my Sunday evening is going to be a lot nicer now.
Let's because I've noticed that after Martin's little semi rant there, he's clearly finished his beer. So, Martin, what are your final thoughts about the Amity Brew Co Red Lane Extra Special Bitter?
I think the description was 2 out of the 3. I found it, the earthy aspect was definitely there, you know, reminding me of the cask beer. The caramel, spoke about earlier, wasn't getting the marmalade. I was getting more red berry kind of qualities from it, those kind of red fruits rather than the marmalade. I would love to have an experience of that particular beer on cask.
Cask version of that would be incredible.
I think it would just
without
lift
a doubt. Yeah,
it would definitely be an elevation in it.
Yeah.
You know what this is? I still haven't had a pint of cask beer. Not been able to yet. I tried to go to a pub, to an outdoor garden, and I assumed that they would be selling draft beer. When we got there, they weren't. They were just selling bottles and cans.
No.
I know. I was like, oh.
I would have cried. Did you? I hope you didn't. I hope it wasn't that bad. I would have cried.
I mean, I felt like crying, but I've done so much crying over the last few months.
No.
I was like, I'm done with crying. I've got to move on.
I'm having a break from crying. Any final thoughts from you on the Don Zoco, Jules?
You know what I like about Don Zoco, and sometimes these are the breweries that sort of like pop up like locally, St. Mars the Desert. You know, they're inspired by, say, you know, German beers or Belgian beer scenes. And in a way, I love it because they kind of get UK beer drinkers drinking these styles of beer that they may not typically have gone for, but because it's a local brewery or a new UK up and coming brewery, they give it a try. And I just kind of think, oh, that's going to open another flavour door, somebody's mind. And I love it.
I think we need to use that phrase, Steve.
I was just about to say, I love that expression. Flavour door. That is brilliant.
Yeah, that has to fit into a few shows in the future, I reckon.
Let's use this opportunity to dive through another flavour door into our next beer. So the second beer this evening, for me at least, is from Amity Brew Co again, and this is their Festoon Hell's Lager, coming in at 4.6%. Martin, what are you on?
I've got this Sunnybank American Pale, which comes in at 6%. I think you are drinking a beer that I've had, Steve, and I'm drinking a beer that you've had.
I think so. So we'll reserve opinion until we've both tried it. Jules, what are you waving around there that we can see? That's a fairly local brewery, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So Ashover, they're kind of sort of South Yorkshire, Derbyshire borders. But I want to try this for obviously lockdown. Because it's an international women's collaboration brew, which obviously happens International Women's Day, so that's the beginning of March. Obviously, for pandemic reasons, I've not been able to get this beer until we've reopened, and I got a delivery from Ashover. The Janine who brews theirs is brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. And it's a collaboration with Thornbridge, Neepsend, Hampton, and Hartshorn, who I'd not heard of, who I think are based in Derbyshire. It's a chocolate orange stout, 5.6%. Really good. It's like a pithy orange, or like a dark fruit cake. It's kind of got that thing going on, which is lovely.
It does sound delightful.
Nice. You've beaten us to the tasting notes on that one. So
Sorry.
we should probably catch up, Martin.
Yeah.
Let's
Steve,
dive into
cheers.
this. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, I'm loving my American Pale Ale, Steve.
I told you would. I tried that ahead of this week's show, and I thoroughly enjoyed every single thing about that beer. And it doesn't even taste anywhere near 6%, does it?
No, that was the first thing I was going to say. It's very soft. It's got a lovely dry bitter finish and some lovely citrus notes, both from the aroma and when you're drinking it. And if this show lasts more than about 7 minutes from this point onwards, that beer's out of glass.
Okay.
Seriously, it tastes so good.
I'll be very quick then. The Festoon Hells is everything that you want from a Hells.
Yeah, that was my pre-recording when we were chatting, Steve, pre-recording. I thought it ticked a load of boxes. Only 4.5% as well.
Yeah, really, really drinkable, really kind of sweet, crisp finish to it. Really, really delicious. I've got to say, as grateful as we always are when especially new breweries as well send us beers
definitely
to try. These three beers from Amity would absolutely make me keep an eye out for any future releases, because I think they've nailed each of the styles, but in a way that they're really, really drinkable. I mean, they are incredibly drinkable.
They're incredibly drinkable. They're nailing what they're trying to do, and although they're not giving you much of a descriptor, my American Pale Ale, and I know it says extra special bitter, so people may put fullers into their heads, but if you just think of it as a bitter, it was just quality, easy to drink. Stick that on cask. Give me a few pints of that in a pub beer garden with the sun. Lovely.
Yeah. Now I've just got a quick question to ask to our listeners about Amity Brew Co, because they are a brewery that are very new to us, but they're based in northwest Leeds, and they are a group of friends who met on the beer scene, having worked in the UK's best breweries. Now, that's about as much as I could find out about them. So if any of our listeners from that area know a little bit more about the brewery, or who indeed the people are behind the brewery and where they've come from, I'd love to know a little bit more information about them, because from the three beers that we've tried, I'd say there's probably some pedigree sat behind that in terms of their knowledge and experience.
Yeah, I'd agree, definitely. And also, there's been a bit of love online already from our friends in Yorkshire and Leeds especially. So it feels like people know of or know the guys and girls behind it. So yeah, any information would be gratefully received on this occasion. Give us facts. Me and Steve love some facts.
We do love some facts, and while we enjoy the rest of our beers, let's turn to Jules for some facts. So Jules, obviously you've mentioned about the Hop Hideout and how its beginnings were in the back of an antique shop. You got your own premises, and you've now moved to where you are now. What are your plans for the future moving forward now? Because obviously things are probably a little bit different from what you were aiming them to be. What's the new future of the Hop Hideout? How does business look now moving forward for the foreseeable future?
I think if I'm all honest about this. I'm still working it out. Pandemic has thrown a massive spanner in the works because I did have a few aspirations, a few ambitions, some dreams, let's call them. And part of my sort of sensible common sense head says, just survive, get some cash in the bank, have some cash flow. We don't know what the trading is going to be like. Well, I mean, I know from being open for a month, it's heavily down for me. So yeah, there's massive spanner thrown in the works. I did have a few ambitions, a few dreams. I'd still kind of love to either open a potentially like either a craft beer cafe or a micro pub. Like when I originally opened up Hop Hideout, kind of actually thought I was going to open a micro pub, and I did speak to Martin Hillier, the original, say, new micro pub guy, and I sort of decided to go down a different route for various reasons at that time. So my sort of beery journeys in like a long period of time, I guess. And I just felt, I love cask beer, but I kind of felt I wanted to show what the world had to offer. I love Belgian beer. Was this whole new world of breweries just focusing on, different styles of beer that I guess weren't typically dispensed in a cask at that time. So, you would typically find their beer in bottle or on keg. And so I ended up opening up a beer shop, partly as well because I didn't want to. I've worked in the beer trade for a long time, and I'm kind of a bit sick of 12 o'clock midnight finishes. And I thought, great, maybe I can have a business that, I don't have to work late. I could still have a potential family within that. The startup costs for a beer shop are a lot lower than something like even like a micro pub or a bar. So for me, it was a more accessible entry business, small business. We don't all have huge backers behind us. Like I literally started the business on £5,000 that I saved from my previous job. And I just want to read some statistics here because I was on a virtual presentation by the Shine Foundation, and it was all about women brewing in Africa a couple of days ago. So Quasar Craft Brewery, and they put up some data actually, and so from female founders data, 2.7% of capital investment goes to female founders. There's a severe lack in being able to raise funds and investment for women at female-owned businesses. There's a lot of challenges there. I mean, in the Brewers Association, unfortunately, I don't think SEBA have these figures. They've not been collecting that kind of data, I think. But in the US Brewers Association in 2018, I think 2% of US craft breweries were owned by women fully. And in terms of brewers, 92.5% are male and 7.5% are female. And that's in this kind of huge, burgeoning, US craft beer scene. So yeah, there's for me, the beer shop entry is A, what I could afford, and B, I've just found less challenges to actually into and open up. I've been doing a bit of beer shop, if you want to call it beer shop history research, over lockdown because I've had more time on my hands. And I've been chatting to Ron Patterson a lot, a well-known beer historian. And really from what we've kind of ascertained is that really beer shops in some form have been around for about 190 years. So there was this 1830 Beer Act which freed the market up, and it enabled people to get licenses more easily, let's say. And now some years later after that, things were changed, and they made it kind of more red tape to get licenses. But if you think about that, beer shops have a history, and when you look back, what you might often find is that were women in retail. Women have been allowed to run retail businesses partly because when their husband passed away, they were allowed to keep that business running. in retail and beer shops specifically, you find, so I've found a list of Sheffield beer shop, and there's a lot of women's names there. That's because their husband passed away and they were allowed to continue to run that business to provide income for their family. Actually, as a sector, it's allowed female entrepreneurship. So yeah, the beer shop sector, it allowed me to start a business on a very smaller amount of money. That's not to say that it still doesn't take a lot of time and energy and costs associated to it. I suppose this chat we're having was sort of initiated when I responded to Martin talking about corkage.
Yep.
And I just kind of wanted to, I don't always think consumers, and I certainly didn't till I started working in the trade, really like understand the costs that are there. Or sort of comment, and I completely get this, because when you start a business, you've got to think about, who your customer is and what they expect. That's one of the things that, you go through in your business plan. Once that, say, can or bottle has been drunk in the shops or your pub or business, you're still paying for recycling, still paying somebody an hour's wage to clean up. There's lots of these kind of additional things that maybe you don't think about as a consumer, and I totally get why you wouldn't. I guess that's why I'm here to sort of share some of that. So I wrote a bit of a list. These are just some costs of goods and services that you might be spending. So you're getting the initial setup cost, which could be, your initial stock holding could be like £10,000, let alone the cost of licensing, solicitors, the shop fit, personal license, signage, obviously all your till setup, buying a domain name, you might not even turn a profit for a number of years because of depending how much you've invested in that initial setup of your business. You've then got your daily sort of annual running costs, so rent, marketing, training, staff development, insurance, you're paying your paper, your ink, your bags, your accountant, electricity, water, gas if you've got tap lines, you'll be paying like your monthly gas, wages, NI, pension. We provide drink, so like coffee for staff. If you're doing a mail order part of your business, you've got the boxes to buy. And a lot of these things, you have to buy a lot of volume to get a decent price. So you're actually sat on, hundreds of boxes, hundreds of growlers, hundreds of paper bags, website, bank fees, card fees. If you get over the VAT threshold, you've got VAT to sort out, which I've got to do my VAT stuff paperwork this weekend in QuickBooks that I'm also paying for monthly. Cleaning. If you're managing to make some profit as a business, which is bloody tough, you're generally probably going to reinvest it. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And I'll be honest, like I come back with minimum wage. Like I earn less money now than what I did when I was working for a brewery back in 2013 when I left.
That is an insightful list. If anyone listening to the podcast was thinking about opening a business anytime soon, I think you've just stopped them in their tracks, in all honesty.
There's different reasons for, you see, like a few websites. So if you are wanting to start a business, it can be so fulfilling. Like for me as a woman, running and owning my own business has been so fulfilling in so many ways, because when I was in a previous job, I was told so many times that I couldn't manage and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. Obviously running my own business, I've been able to show people that I can, and I can do some amazing things, like set up a citywide beer celebration under the Sheffield Beer Week banner, like organise a craft beer festival where like 1,500 people come to. I was told in my previous job that I wasn't management material quite a lot of times. So, it's so fulfilling to be able to have that direct connection as well with beer drinkers. That's like one of the things I love, is just seeing somebody discover a beer for the first time.
I mean, the insight that you've given us there, Jules, is just absolutely, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And I think and anybody listening to this week's show will fully appreciate the breadth of experience and knowledge that you've got before you went into running the bottle shop itself, and all of the considerations you've had to take on as a result of that. And it's so interesting just to sit and listen to you talk about that experience as well. And we could literally, honestly, we could go on for hours.
I think, Jules, what we really need is, if this time next year things have returned to some sort of normality, which we experienced in the past, I think you should come back on. I think we can chat about this in even more detail. And also, with all that food for thought you've given us, now that our listeners have heard it, that poll and discussion we had before would be one worth revisiting.
Our regular listeners will realise at this point that there's no Hopinions this week, because actually what we've replaced that with is Jules basically talking about her experiences and the passion that she has for the industry. And if you want to continue to get involved in that discussion, use the hashtag Hopinions, and you may very well find yourself in this next part of the show.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
Ian Smith at Fine Ian, and this was via DM following last week's show. Just listen to the show. Cheers so much for the chat on the beer. You've hit the nail on the head with the way you talk about it. It's a little drier than we hoped and a little brighter than we expected. Always nice to hear folk talking about beer who know what they're talking about. We're not so sure about that last comment, are we?
Yeah, which podcast was he listening to?
I'm not sure he was listening to us. But thank you very much, Ian. We really appreciate that. And we appreciated the Jarl as well, which we thoroughly enjoyed. From Johnny Beerboy at Johnny Beerboy, just listen to the latest episode. And while I really enjoyed all the guest drinkers, the old school style of just you pair gabbing on was lovely. Familiar feeling. Like I'm imagining my first pint of cask beer might be, whenever that is.
I like that. From Fine Ales, cheers to Martin and Steve for kicking off the latest show with a tasting of the hashtag Happy Birthday Jarl edition cans. And again, it was a pleasure. And again, thank you very much for sending them through to us. From Sean O'Reilly at Uncrulia, late start to the highlight of my week. Regarding Citra, I read recently that it came out in the US in 2007. So it took 3 years to reach our shores. I think it shows that Adnams were close to the cutting edge, releasing Ghost Ship in the same year as Citra and Jarl. When he says Citra and Jarl, he's referring to Citra by Oakham Ales, I presume, anyway.
We're going to come back to that in a second. Hold that thought. From Richard Taylor at Richard Taylor 1608, thanks for the good luck messages. Having the Vickery open is a huge step back to normality for me and others. Although I have enjoyed these few months off, it's going to be great being back doing what I love. It annoys me some pubs can't get it right due to rushing open. And then from your boy, Rob Edwards, at Rob Edwards 90, always look forward to Thursday mornings. Another very enjoyable show, guys.
Thanks, Rob. From Gareth at Barrel Age Leeds, caught up with the last two shows, both really good. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Amity Brew Co next week and hearing from Jules.
Hopefully this show's ticked all the boxes for him then. And hopefully, Gareth, you'll be able to tell us the information that we're looking for on Amity as well.
From Utopian Brew at Team Utopian. Great pod as always, guys, and thanks for the mention. Pulling my thoughts together on SBR over the weekend. We're approximately 1.1 hectolitres last year and guess around 3.5 this, so very topical. Quick point on pod, not sure a 5 hectolitre business quite as small as suggested. Probably 1 million revenue and 6+ staff, ? So again, that still rumbles on, that whole debate about the small beer duty.
It does. I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon, is it? From Neil Hayden at Neil Hayden 73, enjoyable Friday morning walk soundtrack by Hopinions. It still blows my mind that Sierra Nevada Pale Ale has been around longer than Hobgoblin.
Yeah,
does
definitely.
Me as well.
Every time.
Just to come back to the Citra comment that Sean made, that did kind of spark a whole discussion last week. So again, for me and fine ales. I have no stats to back this up, but I'd imagine the crop yield for 2007, 2008 Citra would be tiny, so getting any over to the UK impossible. Citra, December 2009, Jarl, May 2010, and Ghost Ship, October 10, would have all been brewed with the 2009 crop, and even that was limited. Coming in on that was Will, Longmate. It was so low in 2010, it doesn't even show up in the variety tables. Production doubles in 2011, and it appears on the sheet. 98 tonnes harvested in 2010, 196 tonnes in 2011. That's 50% less than Goldings in the UK for the same year. It was probably a niche variety when those beers were released. Jump forward to 2018, it's 25 times the crop. This graph showing average increase from 2014 is pretty impressive. We're going to link through to that in the show notes. If you want to look at graphs and stats, have a look at that. It is great info from Will. And then finally from Fergus Fitzgerald at Soul Bear from Adnams, I can confirm that we ran out of Citra in 2010 and 2011. So there was a lot of demand for Citra when it was first released, it would seem.
Well, it became when people started to know about it and became aware, I suppose.
Let's get a final round of thoughts on the beers that we've finished. Probably,
yeah, finished.
I
finished.
Still drinking.
I'll come to you last, then, Jules. Martin, how was that American Pale Ale?
Fantastic. I did share a bit of it with Michelle, and she fortunately, for some odd reason, decided to hand back a lot of it, and I've still finished it in time for the end of the show. It tastes lovely. It's got all those qualities of an American Pale Ale. It's all balanced. You know, like we love a nice, bitter, dry IPA, Steve, with lots of piney resinous. This is all of those, but all balanced, all level, nice playing field, so drinkable. Give me another can.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that when I enjoyed it. The Hells, the Festoon Hells, much along the same lines, completely drinkable. I could drink can after can of that. It's so well balanced, so easy to drink, so easy on the finish. Really tasty stuff at 4.6%. Jules, how was your beer?
Very enjoyable, I have to say. It's it's like that fruity, dark, rich sort of molasses orange cake I sort of mentioned earlier in the tasting notes. Yeah, it's lovely. I'm still drinking mine because it's a 500 ml. I've had both of my beers with 500 ml.
Unfortunate for you. yeah. So, Jules, listen, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. Your insight has been absolutely incredible. If people want to find you and maybe continue some of these discussions directly with you, where they find you?
So you can find me, obviously the beer shop is Hop Hideout, which is just at Hop Hideout. I've got my own Twitter, so I'm at beer_revere, and that's kind of got a lot more of me. So I do lots of other things. I do a bit of beer writing, event stuff. I like beer festival, and then at Chef Beer Week is the Twitter handle for the citywide beer celebration. So I think I manage about 9 different social media accounts.
Nutter.
Okay. We'll link those 3 through in the show notes so people can find them if they want to have a chat with you on any of those. Martin, what have we got coming up next week?
Well, subject-wise, we haven't quite decided yet, Steve. So obviously we'll be having a conflab during the week. Beer-wise, I do know Brew York. Fortunately, The last case they sent to us had ample amount of beers, very kindly stuffed in there. And I've got another 2 which I can't wait to try. Yeah,
me too. I'm really looking forward to trying those next week. That has been a great show this week. I've thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, and I look forward. Jules, you'll come back on again. We'll chat again in hopefully a year or so's time when things have changed. Martin, you and I will be drinking beer again next week. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, both.